That's why Guru Nanak Dev Ji said to their teacher, Banda Gopal, is, I'm only learning these letters if they have a meaning. Otherwise, why do anything that is empty? Then Guru Nanak Dev Ji gave a meaning to each letter to be able to learn that alphabet, because Guru Nanak Dev Ji wouldn't do anything empty in his life. Telling us, are you doing anything in your life that is empty? If you are, then that moment's gone to waste. Then you just lost another opportunity of connecting back to that creator. Just the use of language, even that shouldn't go empty, Guru Nanak is saying. Allow that for you to be blown away by just you speaking and using letters. Welcome to the Japji Sahib podcast. In this episode, we'll be going through the 19th stanza blessed to us by Guru Nanak Dev Ji. In this stanza, Guru Nanak helps us to look at this world in a much more holistic way and to start appreciating the vastness of this creation, which in return helps us not to be so stuck in our heads, not to become self-centered and start to feel that this whole life revolves around me, which can cause us a lot of stress and suffering. So let's get straight into this stanza. Preacher sing Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa,
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Fateh. Asankh Naav, Asankh Thaao. The word Asankh means countless, which we've seen in the previous two stanzas. And the word Naav here in this context can be translated to names. So literally here Guru Nanak Dev Ji saying there are countless names. Asankh Thaao. Thaao translates to places and saying there are countless places. So when you read this, and I know we've been contemplating this whilst putting the literal translation together, what comes to your mind when you've read this in the past, or when you read this line, Asankh Naav, now having that literal translation before you?
Hanji, like you introduced the episode, that it's to maybe give us perspective on how small we are in the bigger grand scale of things, and it's not even localized to the world and the earth. It's the creation's quite big.
Yes. So the Asankh Naav is talking about the names of all the places. And when we say all the places, that doesn't just mean the physical places that will often come to our mind. For example, a place that we've visited in this world. Obviously, we're only going to visit places in this world. So, well, there are a few people now that are going to space to have a look at, well, the world from that perspective, literally. But so when we think time, when we think places, we often think, oh, a place being, say, we live here now in England, and we think, oh, a place being India, or a place being Amritsar, and then going to that place. Or we think here, going to a children's school, that being a place. But here, what it's talking about is literally every possible place and thing that has been created. And we've given those places, those things a name. So we've just gone through some of those names. The name of a country, the name of a city, and then, but as well as that, this is more than that, because it's every possible place of creation, even to the most subtle of things. And everything has been given a name to it, which if you start looking at life like that, then it becomes countless. We could look at that the different body parts, they've all got names. And we start looking and breaking creation down in that way. And it's all part of creation. It's all a part of that one that's just manifested in so many different ways. Just like Guru Arjan Dev Ji tells us as well in Bhavan Akhri, saying that Nirgun, Sargun, Ek, that the formless and the form are one. And they say, Ek hai ek bakhanano nanak ek anek. That one is the many as well. That one is the countless as well. So this is Asankh Naav, Asankh, the anek. So that when we split even our body, because there's the body, that's the names. This is a human being, and then you've got the animals, that's then those names. When you start looking at life like this, but if you take it even more subtle, I was thinking about this morning, and I always go back to my favorite pauri from Asa Divar, which is the Vismad book, Vismad Bog. If you look at that, these are also names. Book is a name of something. And book is hunger. And even that, you could look at that, you could translate that into a place as well. It's not a literal place in the sense that how we think of place, but it's still a part of the creation. And that's what the Thaao here means. Thaao is there's so many different elements to the creation. So the moment, I think it was this morning or last night where I felt quite hungry. And when your stomach starts to growl and it makes that noise. And the moment it did that, I thought about this body, that Asankh Naav, Asankh Thaao, that even this book, that's one of your names, that even hunger, and that could be taken as a place. So when you go into the subtleness of this creation and you start to realize how much layers and elements of it is layered with, when you start living like that, it takes you out of your head. It takes you out of the insignificant thoughts that we get stuck in. And this just naturally then takes you into that space of awe. Just like Guru Amar Das Ji talks about then that Vahu Vahu Kartniya Rain Sukh Vihai. Rain means night, but here the night referring to life. Our life can pass like this then. And the Vihai means to pass. Imagine starting to live like that. And the Vahu here isn't just being in awe of the creation side of it. Because Guru Amar Das Ji has said here only the word Vahu, but Guru Nanak Dev Ji gave us the mantra Vaheguru. And I heard a really interesting perspective on that, which was to say that if you look at just look at the word Guru itself, that Ru meaning light and then Gu meaning darkness, if we really are in that experience of Va, of that awe, the awe cannot be just for the creation. The awe is for the creator that has been able to create such vastness and subtleness of this creation. And then, so what we're saying, when we're in that true state and we connect to the creator in that moment, so what's happening is the Guru part, the Shabad, is what's happening to us in that moment. We, in that moment, are coming out of Gu, out of the darkness of ego, of being stuck and thinking this on just this one single entity. And we start to realize how we are all interlinked and everything is connected. Then what happens is that we go into that state of Ru. We're in that moment in the light.
You know, when you go into nature,
Yeah.
and you see something, you're just like, wow. And I think a lot of people, whether they identify themselves as religious or spiritual, or even would even identify themselves as atheist, or completely kind of resist any idea of spirituality. But when they go into nature and they have that same feeling of awe, they don't realize that they're actually experiencing that creation. But if they don't, the question is, if they don't acknowledge that there is something behind it, are they still naturally from that place of awe praising the creator, would you say?
Obviously we can never answer this for sure. We can only but speculate to an extent. And as you ask that question, there's a pankti that comes to mind. And I know it's in a slightly different context, but I think we can safely look at it in this way. There's a pankti from Dasambani by Guru Gobind Singh Ji where they say, Jaan ko det, ajaan ko det. And where it's so amazing, Guru Gobind Singh Ji saying that one, that divine one, that creator is Jaan ko det. We can translate here, Jaan, the one that recognizes that creator. Jaan daya. But then the one that doesn't recognize the creator, Ajaan, that the creator gives to them as well. So one way of looking at this is that if somebody gets into that state of true awe, because it's a state, it's not, you're not just generally saying, I'm not saying, oh, look at Preacher and look at the sky today, looks great, doesn't it? That's a general comment, we've just observed that. But then it's going into that state where you're just in this state of wonder and wow, and you've lost yourself in it. But when you truly lose yourself in something, you become one with that. There's no ego state left anymore. You're in the experience of it. So in that moment, what you are experiencing, you ajaan ko det, even the one in their thinking mind could be denying the existence of a creator, but what they're experiencing in that moment would be the same as the one that believes in the creator, but doesn't necessarily have an experience of the creator, but in thought, in belief, that because everyone has their own beliefs. Yeah, there'll be beliefs that you have that are determining the way you live, but you may not even be clear about your beliefs. That's another topic. But in that moment of experience will be the same. The difference is the one that denies the existence of a creator, when they come out of that experience, in their thinking mind, they could go back to that same story and what they believe in. Hopefully that's answering the question that you've asked. But in that moment, the experience itself will be the same. There's a lot of now studies coming about as well in regards to awe, of how healthy that if we are able to experience that state more and more in our lives, of how good that is for our mental well-being. And I feel that if we can make people more aware of how good this is for us, then people can start opening themselves more to living in that way. Because that is, I would say, a part of the wheel for our general mental well-being and beyond. So Asankh Naav, Asankh Thaao is so vast, is truly countless. But Well, let's go on. And then Guru Sahib Ji saying that Agam, Asankh Lo. Saying the word Agam comes from the word gaman, means to be able to reach out and grasp something, or to reach the end of something. But then this is Agam, something that can't be accessed. You can't reach out and access the limit of something. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji says that Agam, Asankh Lo. There are countless of law of realms, or we could say worlds. Even if you just think of other planets, stars, there's countless that the human mind will never know that even exist. Never mind, will never be able to reach in any form of way where the senses are concerned. And this can really help us to just start letting go and be in awe of that creator. So these Thaao, and I know I took it a lot more subtle in what those places can be, but here Guru Sahib Ji saying even these the very obvious physical matter that we see that exists. It's so easy for us to just think it's this world and this little city that I live in. And I've heard so many times by our Canadian Gursikh Gurpais that for some reason the people, the Sangat that live in UK, they start to think and feel that that's all that there is, and the entire world revolves around that little UK that you guys live in. And it can sometimes start feeling like that yeah, well, it's all about how we think here and this little place. Guru Sahib Ji saying, never mind this world, just there's so many countless worlds. I think the way I took that this morning when I was thinking about it was that, again, we just think it really makes us feel quite, and I don't mean this in a negative way at all. It can make us feel quite insignificant. And I don't mean that in a negative way that we should be down on ourselves. But in the way of when we can get caught up in the ego. I remember, because the ego has got two sides to it. The ego could start feeling that it could lead to start feeling where I'm better than everyone else. But then you can go the other side of ego as well, where you start to think I'm the worst, I'm so bad, and there's nobody as bad as me. But even that saying, there's nobody, like I'm better than you in the sense of that I'm the worst. So there's those two sides of ego. Still ego. And somebody asked me the other day, they said, well, if you're being bad to yourself, if you're beating yourself up, and I thought ego is about being big-headed. I said, no, that's when ego leads to arrogance. But when you're being so bad to yourself and you're beating yourself up, that is also in the ego state. And they said, well, I never would have associated it to that being ego as well. How can that be that? I said, because if you're not in the ego state, then you are experiencing Vaheguru. Then you're experiencing the divine. Then you're experiencing just pure love. So when you're in that state, you're not in a state of pure love. You're not in you're too busy feeling sorry for yourself, beating yourself up, how I'm the worst person on this earth. You're not in a state of feeling this joy and love and giving. So because Vaheguru isn't that. Vaheguru doesn't sit there beating himself up. So in that sense, you're still stuck in the ego. And then Guru Sahib Ji go on to say, Asankh Keheh sir Bhaar hoye. There's countless of people that Keheh. Now here we would put the Bisram on the Asankh, countless of people. And then Keheh, on its own, we would say that word before we have another pause. I was saying Keheh meaning trying to describe the creation in its entirety in the way we've got it translated here. But Guru Sahib Ji saying, how can you? There's worlds out there that you can never even know of. How can you? There's things within this body that we still haven't yet discovered and we still don't know. This entire body hasn't been understood yet. So how can we sit there and say, Gaah, that, yeah, we know the limits of God. We know everything of this creation. That's never gonna be possible. Because then if that was possible, then God would be limited. So then Guru Sahib Ji is saying that sir paar hoye. Instead, that's just going to become a burden. Sir paar means a weight on your head. Meaning that you're going to try doing that. You're going to try and take on an impossible task, which isn't possible to do. That's fine where you find more and more, but for you to say, I'm going to know everything, it's just not going to happen. And I would say that the best way to look at a body like this is in a humbling way, where it's just allowing us to enjoy and experience the creation instead of being so stuck in our heads, trying to constantly work it all out. And then Guruji says, Akhri Naam Akhri Salaah. Akhri Naam. The way we're going to be translating this word Akhri here, the word Akhar means letter, and we've used the word here for Akhri. And because this Akhri is referring to the primal sound that's created everything, that is still now resonating within the creation. So Guru Sahib Ji is saying that Akhri Naam, that through that divine word has come that Naam. And the way we've translated it here, I'll just read that out and then we'll go into it. The name of the one is realized and is praised. So what that means here is that the name of that one, what we just went through before, is saying that there are so many names of that one from the creation. If we just looked at it first in that way, these different things that we discover, these different things that we realize that are within us, that Guru Nanak Dev Ji brings to our awareness. Just like we went through the book, the hunger, these are all these different things, and then we come to realize that through that divine word. And what that means is there's this intelligence that is inside of us, that Naam, that primal sound. When we tap into that, when we surrender and tap into that, we start to realize so much more. And we start to realize that the name of that one, meaning that there's this vibration, there's this intelligence, this sound that is behind this entire creation. You come to realize this, how everything is working in such a synchronized way, and there's a vibration behind that is making it all work, and that vibration is that Naam. And from that Naam is coming all these different things and different names. Akhri Salaah. And when you come to realize that, then you start to praise that one through the different things and through the different things that you become aware of the creation. And when we start living like that, there's no space then. You know, a lot of us, we have our moments where we feel low, where we feel down, including myself. And the truth is that in those moments, it means that we've disconnected and we're not in a state of salah, in a state of praise. Because if you stay in that state of praise, you're like this curious little child, innocent, curious child, and you're discovering more and more. And you're just in this state of wonder, and that's why you're just in that salah and saying, wow, wow, look at this of you, look at this of you. When we're saying, look at this of you, look at this of you, that is the Naam. We're discovering more layers of that Vaheguru's name. And you can't, in that state, then feel any low or depression. It's when we break out of that state. So every time I feel like that, that means that I've broken out of that state. And I need to somehow now find and go back into that. So praise is huge. I think I've always taken it for granted when I've read it on the translations, praising God, praising the Creator. And you almost think of it as, does it just mean sitting here and what does that even mean? When I really think about it, that if I'm really praising, if I'm discovering the different layers of names of that one's creation, how can I feel low? Then I'm always just curious to not know the limits of that one, but just to be in the, there's a line in Gurbani, it says that Ape har ek ranga hai, ape bahurangi. That there's so many colors to that Creator. Even if we think about emotions, if we think about emotions like love, that's another color of that one, another creation of that one. Ape bahurangi. Compassion's another color. When we discover these things, because even that, compassion, we could look at that as a naam of that one, another naam, and then we praise that one for the experience of compassion. So if we then continue, Guruji then says, Akhri Giaan, Geet, Gaah. That then through that divine word, that where this whole creation has come from, that still exists within us today and now, which is what makes it possible for us to be here, then Giaan, Geet, Gaah. And I'm going to read these translations out because we've gone into made that effort in putting these together, and I think it would be nice for the Sangat to be exposed to it. So spiritual wisdom is attained and the one's praises are sung. Spiritual wisdom is that awakening to the truth. When you start to see things for what they really are and not what you thought they were. And that spiritual wisdom comes through that divine intelligence. Only within that hukam, the way that's been created within that system, can we even attain spiritual wisdom. It's not by what I think I can do to attain spiritual wisdom. It's not what I think if I do this, I'll attain spiritual wisdom. Spiritual wisdom can only come from in the way that Creator's made it possible for me to have spiritual wisdom. I can't do it my way. That's what Akhri Giaan means. Geet Gaah. When that spiritual wisdom I gain that spiritual wisdom, and then I start to sing the praises of that one. Because only when you really realize, only when you really have that spiritual wisdom, do you really start to sing the praises of that one. Until then, you don't. You could try and force it. When you start to see how things are working, when you start to see this wondrous play, then you start to sing the praises. And then Guruji says, Akhri Likhan Bolan Baan. Through that Akhra, through that divine word, and that divine word is just the way everything works, that intelligence. And through there, only through that hukam of how things are, how this creation works, can we then even have Baan, have language. If you think about language, we take it for granted. But language itself, it's when it's come from somebody that is deeply connected, that then language, they start to create and form a language. And then they use those letters, the way they are put together, to form a language, to speak and then write. Today, because we're just taught the alphabet, and then somebody one day made that alphabet. Somebody one day realized those letters. They realized those letters through Akhri, through that hukam, through that divine word, that law. And when they fell into that divine law of however then it's possible to realize how to put a language together, only then can somebody put a language together. Today we've got these letters and we just throw them together. But if you think about who would have discovered, even if we just look at the English alphabet, who originally would have discovered these letters and how they can be then put together, and how you would form a word out of it, and then how that becomes a language, how you create sentences out of that, and how would that letter look, and then how would that letter be formed to be written and made into a word. When I was contemplating this morning, and all I could see was just this letters being put together, and I was in that state of awe to think, how would somebody have chose that an A would look like this, and that a B would look like this, and then this would go together, and this then would sound like this as a word, and how then they chose for these different things, these countless names, and then how you would have used language to put these names together. Then how do you name something? How do you use that language to name something? Originally, whether some of it came from the Latin words or wherever it came from, whoever first discovered these things, the letters originally, and started putting these things together, it was all within that divine will of how it starts to come together. And that's why Guruji is saying Akhri Likhan Bolan Baan. But this just gives us this insight to how Guru Nanak Dev Ji would have been seeing everything. When we think of hukam, when we think of this Akhri, the word, it's not just a few laws here and there, it's everything for how even then putting these together and how you speak, communicate, language. Then just the way I see Guru Nanak Dev Ji presenting this to us is to say that, well, literally anything can connect you back to that creator. If you just now became conscious of that, you're using in this moment a language to speak, you're putting letters together. Somehow this was formed by somebody discovering this. And they would have connected to that Naam inside Naam. And these things would have been they would have discovered these things. And now we're just using this language. How profound is it to be even communicating using a language? That in itself is profound enough for you to connect back to the creator. Because anything can take you back there. That's why Guru Nanak Dev Ji said, I've been mentioning this in every talk I've been doing for the last 2 months. That's why Guru Nanak Dev Ji said to their teacher, Banda Gopal, is I'm only learning these letters if they have a meaning. Otherwise, why do anything that is empty? So Guru Nanak Dev Ji saying, then Guru Nanak Dev Ji gave a meaning to each letter to be able to learn that alphabet, because Guru Nanak Dev Ji wouldn't do anything empty in his life. Telling us, are you doing anything in your life that is empty? If you are, then that moment's gone to waste. Then you've just lost another opportunity of connecting back to that creator. So just the use of language, even that shouldn't go empty, Guru Nanak is saying. Allow that for you to be blown away by just you speaking and using letters.
And Guruji is saying that it came from one sound.
That's it, yeah. Everything's come back from that.
Yeah.
That takes our ego away again. For somebody could say, oh, I created it. No, because it came from that sound. You discovered it through that hukam. That then can be applied to all of this. Sorry, what was the previous to this? And then you could say that even the Giaan, any wisdom I've had that I've realized anything has come from that sound. Anything that I'm singing has come from that sound. So then, Akhra, Sir, Sanjog, Vakhaan. Then according to that divine word, then the account of our actions is with us. Within that, however that divine word works, then we carry the memory of everything that we've done. That's what that's saying. That sir literally means our head, but it just means that something that we're carrying with us. Sanjog, Vakhaan. Sanjog can be translated. Sanjog literally means, one of the meanings of Sanjog is when you meet with something, and to unite with something is one of the meanings. And Sanjog in this context is saying that, so what's to come in your life is you are deciding things based on whatever you are carrying from your past actions. And even that, the way that's made for that to be possible, for that to happen, is through that sound. It's only because of memory that we have got this body. It's only because of how we're able to, even now, the way it all works, for us to be able to now speak, it's because we've learnt this at some point. It's gone into our memory and it's in our subconscious memory, and we're able to speak without thinking about it. We're not having to continuously learn how to speak. It's there. And that is also a part of Sanjog Vakhaan. Vakhaan means to say or to explain. And so what that's saying is that depending on what we've accumulated in the past, that is what will say our Sanjog, our future, will create our next moment.
It will determine our future.
Determine. Yeah. I'm using language now. It's possible because of what I've done in the past to learn this language. When we live unconsciously, everything will just keep happening itself based on that past actions. Living consciously means I get to use all of my past actions, the memory of my past actions, in the way I want to use it. So then I am consciously living. Living unconsciously means that all my past actions are there stored as a memory. I'm unconscious and it's deciding for me itself, and I'm just living. I'm just going round and round and living. Sanjog Vakhaan, Sir. Sanjog Vakhaan. And then Guru Nanak Dev Ji says to us that Jin ehe likhe te sir Naahi. The one that has written this divine law of how it all works, it isn't that one that created, the designer, isn't subject to it, is free from it. So there's something inside of us, there's this consciousness that is still inside of us all the time, that is outside of all of that. It's always there. And that's what it means to break out of that. And you can almost then just see it all unfolding when you realize that it's not that this is just an external God sitting in one place that is outside of that. There's something inside of us that we can access that is also outside of all of that, where there's just pure stillness. And all of that, the Sanjog, whatever happens to the body falls out, and that's all part of the creation, how it naturally happens. This body decays. You can watch that happening. That continues to happen. But the truth is, we are something that isn't subject to that. But we're not that until we don't realize it. Guru Nanak Dev Ji tells us that antar sunnang, bahar sunnang, trepavan sunnam sunnang. Antar, there's that deep sense of stillness inside of us. Now, right now, it's always there. And you'll realize that that stillness, nothing is subject to that. It doesn't age. It's just perfect. It's absolute. It is just what it is. When you start living from that place, and then you use this body and you use that memory, and you just watch the body getting old, and you know that's not you, it's just a vehicle. And you're just in this place of antar sunnang. That's just Guru Nanak Dev Ji saying it's there. And when you realize it, within you, you start seeing Bhaar Sunnang. It's everywhere else as well. Tripavan Sunnam Sunnang. Sunnam Sunnang means where something's filled with it everywhere. And then you realize that it's in all the three worlds. The three worlds here just can be loosely translated to whatever's here on this earth, whatever is above it, below it, just meaning everywhere. That's what the three worlds, we can loosely translate it to that, to just saying everywhere, above, below, here. Chauthe sunne jo nar jaane, and saying that there's a state that is outside of the three qualities that the entire creation is made up of, and that place is that pure stillness. Guru Nanak Dev Ji says, Jo nar jaane, that person that comes to know this, Tako paap na punnang, is outside of virtue or vice, because it's just pure stillness there. So if we come back to Jin eh likhe tisar Naahi, because we don't want to say this and just start thinking that this is just a separate God that is that. But Guru Nanak Dev Ji is reminding us that God is within you. And that's what we're trying to realize, so we can break out of just being in that cycle. Je Furmaae tev Paahi. As that word, the Akhri, the Akhra, that sound, Furmaae, commands. Yeah. So if you just think within that is contained just this law, there's just this vibration of law. Je Furmaae, as that commands, that one. Tev Paahi, as do we receive the physical matter and everything else. The creation is subject to that, and cannot escape from that, no matter what. Just because we could realize that with that stillness, but it doesn't mean then the body can escape that furman, that command. However this is designed to be and to go through, it will go through that no matter what. Je Furmaae tev Paahi. Every little thought, every emotion that we have will go through, will receive accordingly to that will. Jeta, Keeta, Tetaa, Naao. I absolutely love these Boriya, these few lines where Guruji is saying that Jeta, Keeta, whatever has been created, Tetaa, Naao, has your name on it. Nothing's outside of the hukam of that one. And another really cool way of looking at it is saying that, say if I've put something together, say if I made this, I don't know, forget me. Whoever's made this mic.
It's a nice mic.
It's a good mic, yeah. And it's made by Shaw.
Yeah.
It's got their name on it. It says Shaw here, it says, and that's
Rode.
A Rode. So the stand's been made by Rode, and it's got their name on it. But really, if you break it down, nothing is outside of having God's name on it. Because this is metal. Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's not plastic, is it? Yeah, it's metal. Yeah. So this is, a lot of things are plastic nowadays. And that's metal. That comes from the earth. The earth is made by that one. So really, that's got that one's name on it. Nothing's outside of that. When you start looking at life like that, then you start to see Vaheguru's name on everything. The signature is just there. And even on this, whatever material this is. If you break it down, it still come from that one.
Velcro, isn't it?
Yeah. So I don't want to get too much into materials because it's not my forte. It's not something I've done my research in. Maybe I should. It's always interesting. So I think an amazing question is, are you starting to see Vaheguru's name signed on everything? You know, we're sitting here in this space, and within this space is air, and you become aware of the air within this space. That air has Vaheguru's name signed onto it. And then when you can then take a breath consciously, and then you start to realize that even that air that's going inside of me has Vaheguru's name signed onto it. And this sounds it can sound very bizarre talking like this, because this isn't how the average person lives in this way. But believe it or not, this is how Guru Nanak lived. This is Guru Nanak's Bani. He's just saying that, yeah, wow. And he just said a little bird then. Did you hear the bird? Oh, yeah. I don't know if you heard it.
Not through the headphones, no.
Oh, okay.
I can just hear your beautiful voice.
Oh, right. Yeah, I just heard a little bird singing. And even to that, Guru Arjan Dev Ji saying that, "Jio bolat hai mirg meen pankheru, so har bin japat hai nahi hor." Even then when you hear a bird singing pankheru, so bin har, without Vaheguru, without that one, japat hai nahi hor, it now seems to me that it can't be anything else other than that one, can it?
Is Vaheguruji's name written on your heart if you're not living in that devotion that we spoke about so much in the previous Bodhiya?
What we're saying is Vaheguru's name is on everything because everything has come from that one. Everything, the hukam that is making all of this is Vaheguru's name. So everything then has Vaheguru's name on it. But what I would say is, what does it mean to have Vaheguru's name written on our heart, which is what you just said? It's about, if we start to see Vaheguru's name on everything, then for us, Vaheguru's name is inscribed onto our heart. Otherwise, we're just looking through the lens of ego, and then we won't see Vaheguru's name. So it all depends on how we're looking at things. And then if we look through that, if we truly look through our heart, through the name of Vaheguru, then we'll see the name of Vaheguru. Everything's made by that one, but we've got to realize that. Realizing it is the devotion. And if we don't, then it's not that the existence of that one isn't inside of us right in this moment. But then Guru Arjan Dev Ji says that, yeah, I've heard that existence of that one is there, nikat suno, ar pekho nahi. I've heard that that one is close, but for me, might as well not be, because I'm not experiencing it. Pekho here could be experiencing it. I'm still suffering. Param dukh pariya. Vaheguru's there, but for me, not, because I'm not in the experience of it. But it doesn't stop Vaheguru from being there. पर जे मेरे लिए नहीं हैगा तो फिर मैनू की फायदा होदा? That's what that's saying. That's what that line is saying, isn't it? But then they say when the kirpa happens, when the grace starts to flow through because I've somehow opened myself to it, hoye kripal Guru lahe par do, the Guru took away those veils that were stopping me from experiencing that. Then milon lal man hariya, now my mind is filled, it's blossoming, milon lal, because now I've met my lal. Now I can see, now I don't just see the metal. That's one name, is metal, but now I can see that the metals come from the earth, which is another name. And the earth is come from that one. Everything takes me back to that one now. Everything takes me back. So we have to bring devotion into our life, ourself. Jeta, Keeta, Tetaa, Naao. When Naavai, Naahi ko Thaao. There is no place that hasn't got your name on it. It's where we started. Then whatever happens, we're getting close again now, where it's 12:15, probably another 15 minutes, and our stomachs will probably start growling. And then it won't be just hunger, it'd be wow, hunger. You made that. Not you, preacher. As in, it will take you back to Vaheguru again. You'll just be, wow. Guru, you'll be in the light. You'll be, if that connects you back to the Creator, then you've gone from darkness to light. You've gone out of the darkness of your ignorance and ego. You've gone into the light of realization of, oh wow, ye bhi tere kol aaya. Ye bhukh bhi teri banai hui a. When Naavai Naahi ko Thaao. Just those words, living those words can take us to that Creator. Kudrat kavan kaha vichar. So these we've translated in the previous stanzas, but we'll read out the literal translations that we've written ourselves. How can the one's creative power be described? Varya na java ek var. I cannot even once be a sacrifice to that one. Jo tud pavai Sahib palikar. Whatever your divine will is, that doing is perfect. Tu sada salamat nirankar. You are always stable and you are the formless one. So Sangat Ji, let these words take you somewhere and not something that you just read and hope for the best one day, but instead let these words take you to that Creator of where everything has come from. And the reality is that is our reality. That's what we are. Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh.
If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share and subscribe. Please donate and help spread Guruji's message. Link is in the description below. Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh.